picture this. You have a date coming over.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, your new girlfriend to be exact.
Mm-hmm.
And she is just finishing up dance practice while you are at home making pizza from scratch.
So the stakes are pretty high.
The stakes are very high. You want everything to be absolutely perfect. You even bought a bottle of wine you know she likes.
Oh.
A Yellowtail Shiraz.
Solid choice.
Right. But as you were standing there in your kitchen, staring at this sealed bottle, you have a moment of hesitation.
The classic dilemma.
Exactly. Do you just pop the cork and pour it when she walks in? Or are you supposed to open it right now and let it breathe? And if so, for how long?
It is a highly relatable culinary dilemma. That exact scenario is actually a real question posted by a user on Reddit.
Really?
Yeah, and it perfectly captures a moment of hesitation almost every wine drinker has experienced at some point.
Oh, absolutely.
We inherently know that oxygen plays a role in how wine tastes, but the actual mechanics of getting that oxygen into the liquid properly,
And efficiently.
right, efficiently, it can feel a bit esoteric.
We have all been the person staring at the bottle. You have probably uncorked a bottle yourself, left it on the counter for 20 minutes, and thought you were doing the wine a massive favor.
We all have.
Well, today's deep dive is going to look at the actual fluid dynamics and the chemistry of decanting and aerating wine.
And we have a really compelling stack of research to pull from today.
We do.
We are synthesizing insights from technical wine blogs, rigorous scientific studies from the Australian Wine Research Institute.
The AWRI.
Right. And we are looking at the engineering specifications behind a brand called Crystocraft.
Which is super interesting.
It is. They are bringing some genuine mechanical innovation to the way we actually consume wine.
So the mission for today is essentially to map the journey of oxygen. We are going to uncover the hard science of why wine needs to interact with the air, how winemakers use it, and how modern design is solving the traditional decanting problem for the everyday drinker.
Specifically, the fluid dynamics of those Crystocraft spinning glasses. Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the biggest operational myth we have all been living with.
The infamous uncork and wait method.
Yes. I was reading through the notes from Orange Coast Winery, and they point out that simply uncorking a bottle of wine and letting it sit on your kitchen counter accomplishes next to nothing.
Nothing at all.
It is entirely a physics problem.
It is. The surface area is the bottleneck, literally.
So, all right.
When you pull the cork out of a standard bottle, you are exposing roughly a dime-sized surface area of the wine to the ambient air.
A dime.
Just a dime. It equates to about a teaspoon of liquid right at the narrow neck of the bottle that is actively interacting with oxygen.
Ah.
And the remaining 745 milliliters of wine beneath it remains completely isolated.
Like in a vacuum.
Basically. You could leave it there for hours, and the structural chemistry of the wine in the body of the bottle will not change at all. So if passive breathing through the bottleneck doesn't work, we need to look at what actually happens chemically when we successfully introduce a larger volume of wine to the air.
Because breathing is a term we throw around loosely.
We do, but it really comes down to two simultaneous chemical reactions: evaporation and oxidation.
Let's separate those out because they serve very different structural purposes.
Okay.
Evaporation is about subtraction.
Right.
It is the physical process of burning off the more volatile, less desirable elements that accumulate in the bottle.
Like what?
Well, when you rapidly expose a large surface area of wine to the air, it accelerates the evaporation of specific volatile compounds, particularly excess sulfites and harsh ethanol molecules.
So you are effectively venting the wine.
Exactly, you are venting it. And once those sharp, highly volatile compounds dissipate, the underlying aromatic profile becomes much clearer, much more defined.
I love that. It is like clearing the static off a radio station.
That is a great way to put it.
But then you have oxidation, which is not about subtracting. It is about transformation. Right.
When the phenolic compounds in the wine finally interact with oxygen, it acts as a chemical catalyst.
And we all know that young, bold reds have a firm tannic structure.
Oh, yeah. They can be rough.
They can. But oxidation physically breaks down and softens those rigid tannins.
It smooths out the astringency.
It does. And simultaneously unlocks the complex chain of esters that give the wine its nuanced aromas.
I was reading the Youngberg Hill source, and they have this fantastic analogy. Winemakers often describe a bottled wine as a living organism that has been cramped in a tiny, dark space for months or even years.
It makes sense.
Yeah. If you think about being confined in a tiny middle seat on a long-haul flight,
The worst.
Right, you don't just sprint a marathon the second you step off the plane.
No, you need to stretch.
You need to limber up, get your blood flowing. Wine behaves in much the same way chemically. It requires a period of structural stretching before it reaches its peak expressive state. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the AWRI research completely reframes how we think about oxygen during the actual winemaking process.
This blew my mind. I always operated under the assumption that fermentation was a strictly anaerobic process.
Completely sealed off from the air.
Yeah, to prevent spoilage.
That is the traditional textbook understanding, yes. But the AWRI spent over 5 years researching the deliberate aeration of ferments.
5 years?
Yeah, and the chemistry they uncovered is fascinating. They found that yeasts actually struggle in a purely anaerobic environment.
Really?
Yes. They need certain sterols to build robust cell walls, and oxygen is required to synthesize those sterols.
So if they don't get oxygen...
If the yeast gets stressed, it starts producing what winemakers call reductive characters.
Reductive characters, meaning those off-putting, swampy, struck-match smells.
Exactly, caused by volatile sulfur compounds.
Nobody wants their wine to smell like a swamp.
Definitely not. So to combat this, modern winemakers are actively introducing oxygen during the active red ferment.
How do they even do that?
They use specific industrial tools. For example, they might use a Venturi tube,
Right.
which utilizes the Bernoulli principle, basically using the pressure of the flowing liquid to naturally draw ambient air into the wine as it is pumped.
That is clever.
Or they use an inline sinter, which is essentially a highly porous piece of metal that forcefully injects microbubbles of oxygen directly into the liquid.
And the AWRI found that injecting this oxygen early on doesn't just stop the swampy smells, it fundamentally alters the wine's developmental trajectory.
It actively boosts the desirable red fruit aromatic profiles.
And it physically changes the mouthfeel, right, by encouraging early tannin polymerization.
Exactly. Reducing astringency right from the start. They are essentially giving the wine a preliminary, highly controlled workout long before it ever sees a glass bottle.
But eventually it does go into the bottle.
It does.
And it arrives in your kitchen or your dining room. And this is where the practical application of aeration comes into play for you, the consumer.
Because not all wines demand the same chemical treatment.
Definitely not.
You do not apply the same mechanical aeration to every vintage.
Absolutely not. You have to treat the age and structure of the wine with respect. Youngberg Hill has a great framework for this.
The grandmother analogy.
Yes. They compare the age of a wine to the life cycle of a person. If you are dealing with an older vintage, say, a bottle that is 10, 15, or 20 years old.
The grandmother.
The grandmother. You handle it gently. It has reached a fragile state of maturity. You do not aggressively shake it awake.
With those older wines, you utilize a traditional decanter. And the primary goal isn't necessarily massive oxidation.
What is it then?
It is physical separation. Over years of aging, the phenolic compounds, specifically the color pigments known as anthocyanins, and the tannins literally bind together.
In a process called polymerization.
Right. They become too heavy to stay suspended in the liquid, and they drop out of solution to form a physical sediment at the bottom of the bottle.
And if you just hastily tip that bottle into a glass, you agitate all that sediment right back into the wine.
Which you do not want.
No. It adds a distinctly bitter, gritty texture to the palate and visually clouds the glass.
It ruins the experience.
So a slow, gentle decant allows you to carefully separate the clear, mature wine from the particulate matter left behind.
But then you have the other end of the spectrum, the teenagers.
The teenagers.
Yeah.
The young, bold, highly structured reds. Think of a recent vintage Cabernet Sauvignon, a robust Syrah, a dense Malbec, or a classic Bordeaux blend.
These wines are tightly coiled.
They're very tight.
They have a massive tannic backbone that hasn't had the benefit of a decade of slow microscopic oxidation through a natural cork.
They don't need a gentle wake-up call.
No, they need a rapid, aggressive influx of air to break down that tight structure.
Though we should caveat that with the delicate exceptions.
Good point.
You must exercise caution with structurally delicate wines, regardless of age.
Like a Pinot Noir.
Exactly. A Pinot Noir has a much thinner skin and a lighter, more ethereal aromatic profile. If you subject a delicate Pinot Noir to aggressive, rapid aeration, you risk blowing off all the subtle nuances and finesse that make it special.
It is like leaving a highly complex perfume unstoppered.
Yes. The most volatile, beautiful top notes just vanish into the room.
Which brings us to the fundamental practical problem of traditional decanting.
That time commitment.
Right. Let's say it is a Tuesday evening. You have had a demanding day, and you just want one exceptional glass of a young, bold Bordeaux.
Just one glass.
Traditional wide-bottom decanters are highly effective, but they require a time commitment of anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes to properly aerate a structurally tight wine.
Who wants to wait 90 minutes on a Tuesday?
Nobody. Furthermore, the mechanics of a decanter require you to commit the entire 750 milliliter bottle.
Right. You can't effectively decant a single glass in a vessel designed for a whole bottle.
It is a significant logistical barrier. The sheer commitment of time and volume is exactly why the vast majority of people simply skip the decanting process entirely.
They just pour it.
They settle for a tightly coiled, less expressive glass of wine because the alternative is waiting an hour and a half for a single pour.
So we have this chemical problem. We need a massive, rapid increase in surface area to oxidize a single glass of wine without the 90-minute wait.
And without wasting the whole bottle.
How do we solve that using physics?
Yeah.
That is where the engineering behind Crystocraft comes in.
Oh, this is fascinating.
They've completely rethought the fluid dynamics of getting oxygen into wine on a glass-by-glass basis.
The mechanical integration in their spinning glasses is what really elevates this from a novelty to a precision tool.
We haven't just rounded the bottom of a glass to make it wobble like a top.
No, they have integrated a patented low-friction bearing directly into the base of the glassware.
A bearing.
Yes. This bearing allows the glass to achieve a completely smooth, highly controlled, continuous spinning motion on a flat surface.
And the duration is what makes it functionally effective.
Right.
The engineering specs note that a single gentle push yields a continuous spin lasting between 1 to 2 minutes. Over 180 seconds of sustained rotational motion.
From a fluid dynamics perspective, what you are doing is creating a sustained vortex.
A vortex in your glass.
Exactly. As the glass spins on that bearing, centrifugal force pulls the wine up the inner slopes of the bowl.
Oh, spreading it out.
Right. This dramatically and continuously increases the surface area of the liquid exposed to the ambient air. It constantly renews the boundary layer of the wine.
We're pulling fresh oxygen into the liquid.
And rapidly accelerating both the evaporation of volatile acidity and the oxidation of the tannins.
So you're effectively condensing 90 minutes of passive surface area exposure into roughly 3 minutes of active kinetic aeration.
It is an instant in-glass decanter.
Let's look at the hardware itself because the material science choices here are incredibly deliberate.
They really are.
They have 2 flagship models to tackle this. First is the Crystal Spinning Glass Bordeaux edition.
Okay.
They utilize a lead-free crystal for the bowl, ensuring absolute chemical purity. But what is really interesting is the rim. They engineered a highly refined 0.8 millimeter lip.
That lip thickness is a critical detail for the sensory experience. A thinner lip significantly alters fluid delivery. It allows the wine to flow seamlessly onto the tip and center of the palate.
Which is where we taste the fruit and sweetness profiles.
Exactly. Rather than forcing a clumsy, wide pour that washes immediately over the sides of the tongue where we perceive more acidity and bitterness.
So it is a structural choice designed to optimize immediate sensory perception.
Yes.
And for the Bordeaux edition, they opted against a traditional fragile glass stem. Instead, the stem and the bearing base are machined from anodized aluminum.
Available in silver, rose pink, or black.
Right. It provides a sturdy, weighted center of gravity necessary for that sustained spin without tipping.
Then you have their second model, the spinning red wine decanter glass with crystals, which makes a fascinating choice in its materials.
This one is different.
They construct the bowl out of borosilicate glass rather than traditional crystal.
Which is the same tempered glass used in high-end laboratory equipment and premium coffee carafes.
Right. And the reason that matters for wine isn't just durability. Borosilicate glass has an incredibly low coefficient of thermal expansion and excellent thermal resistance.
So it doesn't transfer heat easily.
Exactly. When you are interacting with a glass holding it or manually spinning it, the heat from your hands or the ambient temperature of the room can rapidly transfer through standard thin glass.
Prematurely warming a wine that you carefully poured at a proper cellar temperature.
Yes. The borosilicate acts as a thermal buffer, maintaining the intended temperature of the wine, even while it is undergoing aggressive kinetic aeration.
And they pair that industrial-grade thermal resistance with a very deliberate luxury aesthetic.
Crystals.
Yes. The base of the decanter version features an aluminum ring precisely set with 8 authentic European Swarovski crystals.
It is beautiful.
So as the glass sustains its vortex for those 3 minutes, the crystals act as prisms, catching the ambient light and scattering it. It turns fluid dynamics into functional art on your dining table.
It really does.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The manufacturing pedigree of the Crystocraft brand.
They have quite a history.
They didn't just emerge overnight to capitalize on a wine trend. They actually began operations back in 1958 as a specialized metal manufacturer in Hong Kong.
1958.
Yeah. At the time, the industry standard for metal giftware was cheap, high-volume injection molding or casting, which often leaves microscopic porousness or rough seams in the metal.
But Crystocraft took a different approach.
They did.
They pioneered the application of cold stamping techniques in their sector.
Cold stamping.
Cold stamping involves pressing and shaping the metal at room temperature using extreme mechanical force.
So no melting.
No melting. It requires heavier machinery and more precision, but because the metal isn't melted and poured into a mold, it retains a vastly superior structural integrity.
And achieves a flawless, mirror-smooth finish.
Exactly.
They took that mid-century expertise in precision metalwork and eventually merged it with premium materials sourced from a Bohemia crystal manufacturer that boasts 470 years of glassmaking history.
4 centuries.
They even developed a proprietary dazzle crystal cut, featuring 32 distinct facets inspired by snowflake geometry.
It is the synthesis of industrial-era cold stamping and centuries-old European glass-blowing traditions.
Engineered specifically to solve the chemical problem of a Tuesday night glass of Syrah.
But beyond the chemistry and the manufacturing, we have to acknowledge the sociological element of this design.
The social aspect.
The research highlight how these glasses changed the theater of wine consumption.
Theater of wine.
Wine is, at its core, a social lubricant. The spinning mechanism introduces an interactive, tactile dimension to the tasting experience.
The source is linked to some incredible displays of this. You have top-tier professionals like bartender Romy in Dubai demonstrating 5 distinct fluid dynamic spins.
Or bartender Oz in the UK executing these gravity-defying spin and flip tricks.
I saw that. He flips the spinning glass and balances the bearing base on a single finger, while the vortex keeps the wine perfectly contained without spilling a drop.
It elevates the act of aeration from a chore into a highly visual performance.
And even if you aren't executing acrobatic maneuvers in your kitchen, the physical act of engaging with the glass serves a purpose.
Definitely.
Influencers like Emma Hodges have pointed out the fidget-friendly nature of the design.
It provides a soothing, tactile engagement.
Instead of unconsciously picking at the label of a bottle or tapping your foot during a conversation, you are gently manipulating this precision bearing.
Actively managing the aeration of your wine and staying present in the social moment.
It democratizes the sommelier experience.
It really does. You don't need a decanting cradle, a candle, and an hour of prep time to unlock the structural potential of the wine. The engineering does the heavy lifting for you, instantly.
So let's bring this all back to you, the listener.
Right.
Think about the next time you pour a glass of wine. Whether you are navigating a high-stakes homemade pizza date, like our friend on Reddit.
Best of luck to him.
Exactly. Or finally, opening that tightly structured Bordeaux you have been cellaring. Or just pouring a reliable daily drinker.
Understanding the mechanics of how oxygen interacts with phenolic compounds and volatile acids is the ultimate shortcut to maximizing your sensory experience.
You do not have to be intimidated by the terminology.
Not at all.
And with engineered solutions like Crystocraft spinning glasses, you completely eliminate the logistical hurdles of time and volume.
This raises an important question.
I'm ready for it.
Consider the entire life cycle of a premium bottle of wine. The winemakers, the distributors, and the collectors expend massive amounts of capital and engineering effort specifically to protect the liquid from oxygen.
That is true. They seal it with perfectly compressed natural quartz.
They age it in climate-controlled, humidity-regulated cellars. They store the bottles strictly horizontally to ensure the cork remains saturated so that not even a microscopic fraction of air can seep in.
So they are fighting oxygen.
For years, sometimes decades, oxygen is treated as the ultimate existential threat to the wine's survival.
The enemy.
Yet, without a massive, deliberate influx of that exact same oxygen right at the absolute end of its journey, the wine's true chemical complexity and aromatic beauty remain entirely locked away.
Wow.
Is the perfect glass of wine ultimately just a beautifully timed, highly controlled moment of decay?
A beautifully timed, highly controlled moment of decay. That is a deeply compelling way to view the chemistry in our glass.
It is something to think about.
Definitely something to ponder tonight. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
It has been a pleasure.
The next time you uncork a bottle, do not just leave it sitting on the counter. Understand the physics, give it a swirl, maybe give it a spin, and keep learning.